Well, it's not just a simple stroll in the park this time out. Although Formula One may be coming back to the Istanbul Park circuit, man, it's going to be a lot harder than just that. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Pits to Podium for yet another video of 5 things to watch out for from this week's Turkish Grand Prix. And I'm joined by Kunal Shah here with me, who knows literally A to Z of Formula One. He's worked in the sport, he's been a racing driver before, he's worked in the marketing side of things, and now he works as the head of the motorsport department of the Viasat network in Norway. So, firstly, Kunal, welcome back to Pits to Podium. Welcome to the show. And what do you expect from Turkey? It's a track that's got me buzzing after a long time.
It is. And, firstly, thanks very much for that introduction. You get me stumped most of the times, but thank you very much. It's great to be presenting motorsport along with you to all the audiences on the Pits to Podium channel, as well as on the Inside Line F1 podcast, Soumil. And talking about Turkey, personally, lots of memories from the race. It was my first race that I attended as a member of the Force India Formula One team back in 2010, when also the famous crash had happened, and
Yes.
Lewis Hamilton won the race. But overall, lots of positives about Turkey, despite it being a Herman Tilke circuit. It's probably one of the best circuits that he's designed. And for the geography buffs, 2020 is when Formula One is not supposed to race in Asia for obvious reasons. But the Istanbul circuit is on the Asian side of Istanbul. So it's like the first race in Asia, technically, geographically speaking.
Exactly. And what a circuit it is. You mentioned about it being a Herman Tilke circuit, but it's just unlike any other Herman Tilke circuit. Yes, we've got that one long straight, but thankfully it's not just a simple straight. It's slightly curved towards the end. And we've got a couple of chicanes here and there, a few slow corners, but the one corner that comes to everyone's mind, turn 8. How much of a challenge is that going to be this time out, Kunal? And most people are saying, and at least from the looks of things, it could very well be flat in these cars.
It is expected to be flat in this in the cars that we are racing in 2020. And Max Verstappen recently said on the WTF1 podcast that he could actually do turn 8, not just flat out, but blindfolded. Okay, so I'm really eager to see if he can actually do that. And, of course, that's a joke. That just goes to show that how such technical corners have sort of ended up becoming pretty easy to maneuver in these modern day racing cars, and given just the levels of downforce and the grip and so on. But the only thing that could make turn 8 a little tricky is the fact that, it could end up being windy, especially in that section of the circuit, because the circuit is pretty open. We know that it's going to be a little overcast, and the weather's generally going to be cooler or colder. So let's hope that there is some wind, and that just makes turn 8 a little bit more of a challenge, Soumil. And turn 8 is also known as the reverse parabolica, because it's just turning left, whereas the parabolica in Monza is turning right. And Turkey, of course, has a couple of other names stolen from other circuits. So it's called the Turkish corkscrew after the Laguna Seca. I think that's for the turn 8 section that they have. And I think there's also something called as Four Rouge, because of the undulations that happen, something that we've seen at Spa-Francorchamps. So exciting circuit. I'm sure the drivers are going to love it. And, it's a shame that none of these fun circuits have sort of made it to the 2021 calendar.
Sadly, yeah. We expected them to be one-offs, of course, and sadly, they have turned out to be one-offs in the long run. So that's going to be a bit of a sad thing for 2021. But let's look at the positives. I think the corner that you mentioned there, Buon at Spa, it's very similar, isn't it? Just the challenge of the corner has been lost because these amazing, marvelous Formula One cars of today can just take them flat. So it's not the same thing anymore. But nevertheless, turn 8 aside too, we've got a few amazing corners at Turkey. I think the first section is fantastic. After you go for the downhill left-hand, you have a long sweeping right-hand corner. And then I think that the Turkish corkscrew comes in right there. It's a quick descending left-hand turn and following an immediate right-hander. Amazing section. If you haven't watched the onboards, don't do it now. After this video is done, of course. But you'll love it. If you haven't watched any of the onboards yet, I think you definitely should go back. But nevertheless, Kunal, on the whole, it does seem to be quite a well-balanced circuit in terms of the requirements. You've got a few high downforce corners, turn 8 comes to mind. You've got places where you would want to shed that downforce off and have a bit of drag, less drag. let's say, the back stretch and even the front straight, for example. But I think it all levels out in the end towards it. And that just means that Mercedes could very well have their advantage once again because they just excel in such circuits, at such
They
circuits, rather.
excel. Yeah, they just excel everywhere. It doesn't
True.
matter what the configuration is. And, there are also lots of hard braking opportunities,
Hmm.
which will create hopefully some overtakes. Or other drivers are pretty positive that there will be a lot of overtakes, back then. And I know that our friends at Pits to Podium, Nityanand wrote to me saying, in the 2011 race, there were about 125 overtakes there. And of course, there are two
Wow.
DRS zones. There was the DRS back then as well. So it's going to be pretty exciting. What also will add to the excitement is that out of the 17 races this year, there are just 3 that are anti-clockwise: Imola, Turkey, and Abu Dhabi. So, the anti-clockwise nature will also sort of add to the fun, and you'll expect, commentators to keep hyping it up and how it'll be a challenge to the drivers and so on. But, the drivers themselves are pretty well trained for all
Exactly.
such sorts of, challenges that come their way.
I mean, if they've done Mugello, this shouldn't be much of a problem, should it? We were talking about just the strains that the drivers next will have to go through at Mugello. Turkey, yeah, comes close. Definitely not the same level as Mugello, but I think they should be just about fine. Meanwhile, folks, if you check the weather report, it's supposed to be raining on the weekend. Again, we know that's not going to happen. It's the ultimate antithesis of the entire Formula One season so far. But still, it's good to know that. Nevertheless, Kunal, in terms of the challenge that we are going to see in the race, we are pretty sure that Mercedes could very well once again grab pole position, once again get the victory. But who's it going to be this time out? Is it going to be Lewis Hamilton or Bottas? And interestingly enough, the last time Formula One did race here, Hamilton was on the grid, Bottas wasn't. But we've just sort of noticed that whenever we have a new circuit coming in on the calendar, be it Mugello, Imola, whatever it may be, Bottas initially dominates, but it's just Lewis Hamilton who comes up in the end and defeats the free practice world champion.
He does. And, again, some stats. I think Bottas has been on pole twice in the last 3
Hmm.
races, okay, which is Bottas. And I think 6 times in the last, 6 times this season out of 13 races, the gap between Bottas and Hamilton has been less than a tenth. So that's just how close it has been, Soumil. So I will put my money again on Bottas, hopefully getting a pole position, okay? But the truth is, irrespective of who is first or who's second, again, the guys at Pits to Podium have pointed out, that the front row starters have 100% victory margin at Turkey. So doesn't matter who it's going to be. It's going to be either of the Mercedes drivers winning. And in fact, one of the races, Lewis Hamilton was second and he won from P2. So even if he loses pole position, you never know if he's able to still pull off some hammer time and go grab his 94th win. Is that going to be or 93rd win? I don't even remember now.
Same. It's getting out of hand. Not in a bad way, of course. We're just kind of celebrating the success that Hamilton has had. What a man! But that's Mercedes. We know they're going to win. Tell us something different. That's 2 of your predictions of the Pits to Podium Grand Prix prediction competition sorted. Now, what about the third one? Renault have been doing a good job. I think Daniel Ricciardo scored 2 podiums in the last 3 races, and Verstappen has had a bit of a bad run in terms of finishing races. Not that he doesn't finish in the top 3 when he does and all that. It's just that he's not having any luck on his side. I think he did not finish a couple of the Italian races as well. Imola was a bit of an issue. Mugello, he had that major incident at the restart. So there's a bit of a cloud surrounding him. If he finishes, of course, we do kind of expect him to be in the top 3. But nevertheless, Verstappen aside, the battle for P number 3 in the Constructors' Championship and even on the track could be quite interesting because Renault, they're not supposed to be here in these sort of circuits with high downforce, but they still are there. And they're outclassing Racing Point. They're scoring more points than McLaren, not because they have the better car, but they're just able to go out there and execute things better.
They are, and let's hope Max Verstappen doesn't have any more DNFs. The poor
Yeah.
chap has just suffered from a fair bit of unreliability this season, and just the way Lewis Hamilton has extended his records in 2020. I honestly, at the start of the season, thought that Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, not necessarily in that order, will have maximum podium finishes this season. And they have,
Exactly.
of course, had maximum finishes, as opposed to any other combination. Again, I think 7 out of 13 races, the three of them have graced the podium.
Yeah.
So if everything goes fine, I expect the three of them to again take up the podium positions. But like you said, Renault, difficult to rule them out. They have fantastic momentum. Okay, Daniel Ricciardo is again back in the form of his life. Sergio Perez, he will really be kicking himself, after missing out a podium last race. So he could be a new podium sitter this race as well. I think it'll be the 11th or 12th
Yeah.
driver to make it to the podium. And, let's also not rule out Ocon's bad luck or, Lance Stroll hitting form again. He's had 5 races without scoring points. And McLaren seems suddenly to be the underdogs for P3 as well. And they will actually, they might just be struggling a little bit more at Turkey because, we've seen in the past at cooler circuits, they've sort of suffered from graining. Pirelli are bringing their hardest compounds as expected. They're expecting a lot of, graining and degradation to come in. So interesting times for pretty much all the teams. Free practice will be a lot more important here because teams will want to get their, setups right to focus primarily on tire utilization, Soumil.
Well, what's different this time out is that we're not going to have only one practice session like Imola. We're going to have the standard 3. So definitely the teams will have a lot more time on their side. And just coming back to Lance Stroll, Kunal, you mentioned about him potentially hitting form. I think that'll not be the first thing he's hit in the last couple of race weekends, is it? And he's had a bit of a torrid one. He's had a bit of a torrid season so far. But what do you think is in store for him? Because people are saying that he's just looking bad in terms of, in comparison to rather Sergio Perez. And there's often claims going around that the reason why they're getting a diminished Sebastian Vettel to the team next year is to make him look good. Again, could be true, could not be true. That's for each and every person to say for themselves. But it's been just a bad year for him on the whole. Do you expect him to come back fighting this time out? And where do you think Racing Point will stack up on the whole?
Again, circuit characteristics make me believe that Racing Point could very well be challenging for P3 or, P3 being best case, but worst case P4. So there's a good chance that they will be the team in form. Talking about Lance Stroll, he's got a good car under him. We all know that. He had some really defining drives, earlier in the season. He was showing a lot of forward momentum. He made it to the podium. Of course, it would be great to have more cars fighting for positions because that just sort of adds to the excitement and the unpredictability we all want from Formula One, because the last 4-5 races have been Ricciardo versus Perez versus the 2 McLaren drivers. So, if we get Ocon and Stroll in the fight, then 6 drivers battling for P3 and P4 positions is pretty fantastic for the sport overall. That's what I'd love to see.
Absolutely. Should be very interesting to see what Lance Stroll can do. He's recently recovered from the virus. He's training pretty hard, as you can see on social media. Fingers crossed it goes pretty well for him because, as Kunal mentioned, it's always good. It's always heartwarming to see new competitors come in and do a very, very good job. That said, there is the low midfield to look out for as well. Of course, Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly recently did a shoot playing chess by the seaside. And that's been something that's garnering a lot of attention recently. And we also saw Alex Albon carrying an AlphaTauri bag. Now, that's not a sign that he's going to AlphaTauri. That's just because it's Red Bull's fashion brand. But nevertheless, we could see AlphaTauri in the mix. We've seen them do a good job in circuits where they do need downforce and lots of high-speed circuits like this one. And Danny Kvyat, interestingly, seems very confident about his chances on being on the grid next year. So what's next for them? And what about their competitors? Alfa Romeo are here as well. Haas seem to be finding their problem slightly solved up. I don't know. It could be a big mixture towards the end in this part of the grid.
Haas is the only team that has not raced here previously. So they are coming in completely afresh. Danny Kvyat has said that because of the COVID-19 travel restrictions, he could get no time in the simulator. So he's literally, he would have reached Turkey completely clueless of what to even expect. Of course, you can, play games at home and still familiarize yourself. And he was pretty feisty in the race, the last race that we had. Alpha Tauri, I think they have been on a point scoring spree for the last 10 races. And I think that's a new record for the team altogether. And they have maybe a 13 or 14 point gap to Ferrari. So, they'll be definitely looking to get as close to their Italian rivals as they can. And since we mentioned Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, always an outside chance to try and get into the top five, with his spirited drives and, basically delivering more than what the package, expects, or the package merits, with the 2020 Ferrari F1 car.
It's an interesting point you mentioned about Charles Leclerc and Ferrari, because the way their season was going, I almost forgot about them for a couple of moments. It's just been that bad for them. But yes, that's a very good point. Leclerc has been pushing the limits of this car, unlike any other driver. I mean, unlike Sebastian Vettel, quite clearly, and even Vettel himself is agreeing that, yes, this boy, this rather special driver that we have right here, is just doing something that I'm not able to do. He's just getting that extra amount of pace. And look at where he finds himself in the championship. Being number 5 in that completely malnourished Ferrari, I'm going to call it that way, with 85 points, only 10 behind Daniel Ricciardo. That, I think, is superb.
It is, lots of surprises from Charles Leclerc. And like we've said this several times before, he has been so much more impressive in 2020 than he was in 2019. In 2020, he's made it a mission that come what may, give me whatever car, as long as it's got 4 wheels, I'm going to drive the wheels of the car, metaphorically speaking. And that's what he's been doing. Of course, he's enjoying a lot of support and a lot of positive, psychology going towards him by being the center, by being the center of attention at Ferrari, himself. So he's just making the most of everything that he's got in the car and in the garage.
And also with Ferrari as well, it's a bit interesting. This weekend would mark the first time that Matteo Binotto will not be present at the track as team principal. He'll be working from home, just like all of us. So just keep an eye on them about how the team works. Maybe if Binotto's not there, perhaps who knows what could happen. They say that the employees enjoy a lot more when the boss is not around.
Yes, we'll see how it goes. But I think work from home is going to be a very strong solution if we're going to have 23 and 25 races on the calendar going forward. Exactly. But overall, I think it's going to be a fantastic race, irrespective. Felipe Massa is going to be mentioned and remembered time and again. Yeah. And as is turn 8 and the challenges that drivers go through, that particular corner. So we're going to have a pretty exciting race this weekend, Soumil.
Absolutely. Should be a lot of fun. And just before we go, Kunal, what would be your predictions for the Pits to Podium Grand Prix prediction competition? Because that's something that's on the minds and lips, rather, of all of our followers here on P2P.
I think, yes, it has. It's been a lot of fun. I've been languishing in the bottom 10, I think, which is very, very typical. I don't know whether it's my head or my heart that always gets it wrong, but irrespective. But I think I will go with Lewis Hamilton winning, okay, because he has won at all the new or returning circuits in 2020. So I don't see why he won't repeat the feat, at Turkey. Also, given how his season has been, he needs to score 8 points more than Valtteri Bottas, and then he would have equaled Michael Schumacher's 7th World Championship title as well. So lots going on for him, at Turkey this weekend. It's unfortunate fans won't be there to witness such a historic moment, but, that's just how it goes, I guess.
Exactly. That's just what Formula One has been like in the world, rather, in 2020. But should be fun. Sadly, this will be a one-off, but nevertheless, it's a very good chance to watch what modern-day Formula One cars can do at a marvelous circuit like this one. Should be fun, folks. Don't forget to tune in back into Pits to Podium on Sunday evening, just right after the race is done. I think around an hour later on, to find out what our review of the race was and how we look at it, how we analyze the strategy. That our post-race debrief should be up right around that time. And until then, between free practice 2 and qualifying, we are going to have the P2P Grand Prix prediction competition open up. So you can go to our social media channels, which will be mentioned down in the description, and just predict. Just have a fun time. Just go out there and predict your top 3, your best of the rest team, and the driver who scores the fastest lap. Once again, folks, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave a like, to share this video, and to subscribe to the channel. And of course, Kunal, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Soumil. Enjoy the Grand Prix weekend, and I'm going to see you on Sunday.
See you, folks. Bye.